There you go. Hi, everybody. Nice to see everybody on this cold day. So today we're going to learn about some succulent plant care with Melissa from Fancy Plants. I'm Louise. Hi, I'm the branch head of the CM Shield Centennial branch, and I'm founder of the seed library at that library. Amy and I take care of that, and Janet as well. We try to tag team it so that we can make all these seeds available to you. We have Melissa here today. She is, you see her, I will pin her spotlight for everyone. There you go. There she is. Hi, Melissa. So Melissa is our expert today. I had you create me a bio and I did include it in my skit. I just remembered, I thought I was all done. Melissa's been selling some plants since she started with COVID, and I'll let her continue that. Apparently that's something that a lot of us have done some home-based work. I guess we've all had a little bit more time on our hands, or at least it's felt like it for some. So we'll have Melissa give us a great presentation on succulent care. So just a reminder of Zoom etiquette. This event is being recorded, but it is super, super nice to see people's faces, just because it makes it easier that you're speaking to someone, not just a screen, right? But be kind. The chat box is there. I can filter the questions. I can ask Melissa all of these questions. Feel free to chat in there or ask me a question directly or to someone else if you'd like. And don't forget to use your reactions at the bottom or on the top of your screen, depending on what you're using. You can either lift up your hand, or you can do it if your camera's on, just lift your hand up. We're going to try to make this a little bit more of a conversational style program. It helps a little bit more. And you know what? We all have something to add. So it's always great to be able to talk together. Okay, so let's, the floor is yours, Melissa.
Okay, so I'm Melissa. I am the owner of Fancy Plants in Timmins. And just a full disclosure, I am not very used to Zoom. And just bear with me.
We'll work through it all together.
Yep. Okay, so what I'm hoping that we'll go over today is just talking a little bit about what a succulent is, some different types of cacti and succulents, and some different or unique uses of some specific succulents, a basic care guide. I'm going to go over potting your succulent, making your succulent, water propagation, dealing with common pests. And when we're done that, that's probably going to be the hour. If you guys have any questions, definitely feel free to send them to Louise, so she can ask them. I'm doing this through my phone, so I am not going to see anything pop up. So please send it to her and she will ask if they come in. All right. So I don't know how interactive you want this to be, Louise.
As interactive as our participants want. You can go through your one spiel at your one part and then ask anybody if they have any experience. That works too.
Okay, so my first little bit here is what is a succulent? It's basically any plant that has a thick tissue and they're adapted for water storage. So the water is usually stored in the stems, the leaves, or the roots. So I've got examples. So
that's awesome.
Is a little desert rose, and this is actually where most of the water is stored, and it's just in the stem.
Huh. Whatever, cool.
And then we've got a whole bunch here. So
that one you called it a succulent, right?
Yeah, it's a succulent. Thing that stores water. And we've got this little guy here. I actually don't know the name, but
I think I've seen that on your website. I thought it was so curious looking. I love it.
Right there. This is an imported Echeveria, but this one here, it stores everything in the leaves. You got plump little leaves, and that's where all the water is stored for these guys.
So they definitely still need water, huh?
They definitely still need water. And then there's other types of plants too, like technically like Aziz plant could be considered a succulent because they store water in their tubers, like in the soil. So their root system just has like these plump bulbs in them that store their water for them.
Okay, which one was that?
The Aziz plant.
Okay.
It's not technically what I would call a succulent, but it is. It fits into that category. So these guys here,
Yeah. Okay.
their root system, they've got like these big bulbs underneath the soil, and that's where they store their water. And you only have to water these guys maybe once or twice a year.
Oh, wow. Our kind of plant, eh?
So that's what I have for what is a succulent.
Right.
And I've shown you a few different kinds. Like there's the regular cacti, the cactus,
Mm-hmm.
this, or like this.
Okay. So a little bit more on the furry side.
Yeah,
Spikies.
the big thick guys there with the spikes on them. And then there's Echeveria, which I've already showed you. These little guys here.
And is that one a cactus or a succulent?
It's a succulent.
That's right. Okay.
They have glochids, so the spikes on them,
Okay.
that's usually characteristic for a cactus.
Mm-hmm.
Succulents don't have those. Oh, they're usually softer leaves. They usually have a little coating on them, like a powdery coating.
Mm-hmm. And more water retention in the leaves.
Those, I've lost my train of thought. Okay, so there's Haworthia. That's actually one that is in our little prize giveaway at the end.
Yeah.
Lithups, which you know about as well.
I don't know very much about them. Can you guys see it right in the, okay, right there, I can see it now. Right in the middle there, it almost looks like a little bum.
Yeah, they're butt plants.
What do they look like? They're really cute though.
These guys, they're great. They're pretty low maintenance too, but they're dormant over the summer, which is the complete opposite of pretty much everything else.
Oh.
So they come back to life around November, December, and that's when you start watering them, and you leave them alone during the summer.
Sorry, what was the name of that one?
Lithup.
Lithup. So it's dormant in the summer, and it starts up again fall, winter?
Fall and winter. So you leave it alone, water it during the summer, and then usually November, December, you give it a good watering. And then if it starts getting really, really wrinkled or flat, that's when you can give it another bit of water.
Okay, that's what I was going to ask you today, because I wasn't exactly sure. From what I can see online, that's what it was, but it just didn't jive with my brain. You know, summer here is the growing season, not the other way around.
Yeah, but pretty much else is the opposite. Like summer is usually your growing season.
Okay.
Then there's like string plants, like a string of pearls and string of dolphins and string of turtles.
Yes.
Turtles lying around somewhere too.
Just got myself a string of turtles and a string of tears.
These are some turtles.
The turtle one, aw, that's so pretty too. Like, I like that.
That's my favorite string plant.
Yeah, I like the pearl one. Not the pearl, sorry, the teardrop one. It has that clear line in it that's really pretty.
Those are really nice too.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's it for different types. Like there's hundreds of different types, but these are popular. So there's the ones I went over. At this point.
Pardon me?
Does
Any
anybody
questions? I don't think I have anything in the chat just yet. Can't see the chat for some reason. Where are we? There you go. What was the name of the plant that is dormant in the summer? That was a lithup. So a living rock, sometimes called as well.
Yeah, so living stones, and lithups falls under that category. And then there's another one called Pleospilos.
Ooh.
What do I have? I just don't have at arm's reach now.
That's okay.
But they look very similar.
They have different colors, those ones too, eh? Did I read that right? That those lithops often have different colors, but it depends on what they're combined with?
I'm not sure exactly what you mean by what they're
Is
combined
it
with.
maybe the rocks, if you use colored rocks, would they change colors? Are they a little bit more on the camo side of things, or
They don't actually change to blend in with their environment,
no?
and they do look like rocks. So
Yeah.
I have way upstairs on my main floor where I have them in a bunch of rocks, and they're actually hard to find in amongst them.
Okay,
They camouflage themselves.
okay. And are you starting them from seed?
I have.
Oh, yeah?
I had a bit of a bug problem last summer, so I've kind of just given the seeds a break. But you can sow the seeds and you just treat them like any other seedling, really, as long as you keep them moist and warm.
Okay,
And they're very, very, very slow growers. So you're going to start getting something maybe 1 or 2 millimeters wide. And by the time they're a year old, they're not even going to be a centimeter.
okay. So the one that I bought from you, it's only about a centimeter wide. How old do you think they might have been?
It is probably 2-3 years old.
Oh, that old. Okay. Okay. That's awesome. Okay.
And then the big,
Anybody
huge
else?
ones that you tend to see, like in the greenhouses, they're pumped up with some sort of fertilizer or hormone. They aren't
Oh, okay.
supposed to be big.
No. Okay. Can I write the name down? Yeah, absolutely. Somebody was asking how it was written. Here you go.
And whether there's 1 lithops or 2, even singular, it's called lithops.
It's always with an S?
Always with an S at the end, even if there's only 1.
Okay. All right. There you go.
And so they're not just house plants. They actually have some odd and unique uses. So I'm following a PowerPoint, so just bear with me. So do you know of any sort of succulents or plants used for something other than decoration?
Well, other than an aloe vera, maybe. Anybody else have any ideas?
My poor aloe was in an accident. My children knocked it over the other day. It looks ridiculous. But aloe you can use for like sunburns, and you can drink it. I wouldn't recommend it, but sunburn, like cuts, is usually what you use it for.
Burns.
Burns, so you can literally just cut it off and use the aloe gel that's inside. You can either take it or you can skin it and just rub it on whatever.
Making a mess.
And then there's some things like peyote, and they're actually used for medicinal and religious reasons. So this here, it's basically a hallucinogenic. So if you actually want to go through the whole process and boil it down and cut it up, these plants will actually cause you to see things. But those are used in a lot of indigenous ceremonies. And there's something similar to aloe. I don't actually have one at hand, but agave.
Okay.
So that is probably something that sounds familiar to a lot of people because you see it in a lot of ingredients lists for sweeteners. So it's a natural sweetener, and it's also used in our good friend tequila.
Tequila.
So that's where tequila comes from.
And you can grow that in the house?
You can grow it in the house.
Huh.
Its natural is going to get a lot bigger than what it would be in a home. But it's the same as an aloe. Like if you have an aloe growing in the house, it's not going to grow much more than this unless it's permanently outdoors in like a hot, sunny conditions. It's the same for agave. So those are a few different uses for different succulents. Pears too. In some places, they will actually like fry them up and chop them up and use it in salsa. Apparently I think it's a
Which
very
one?
prickly pears.
Prickly pears. Oh, wow.
So most of you are familiar with like a bunny ear cactus where they have like the little bunny ears and they're covered in prickles and glochids and spikes.
Huh.
It's pretty much the same as that, but they take the paddles and they'll take the spikes off of them and just pan fry them. You can chop them up and throw them with some tomatoes and onions and have yourself a salsa.
That sounds awesome.
So there's some different uses. Now we can talk about what a succulent needs to thrive and grow properly, especially if you're doing that indoors. Does anybody have any questions about it?
I don't think so. Anybody wanna? I don't see everybody all at once, just so you know. Anybody have any questions? No? Okay.
So some things that you will want or need to get a succulent to thrive. One of the most important things is a proper pot, but I'll go and talk about that a little bit more in detail after. You need a really good, well-draining soil, and proper lighting. Proper lighting, your plant is going to die. If you don't water it properly, it's going to die. If it's not in the proper soil, it's going to die. If you over fertilize it, it's going to die. So they can be finicky, but if you know what you're doing, if you know the basic stuff, it will be absolutely fine. So you just need to be patient. When I first got into succulents a few years ago, I probably went through about 10 of them before I actually got into the swing of things and they stopped dying with my care. So an important thing would be choosing the proper pot. So the pot needs drainage. So if there's no holes, put it back on the shelf and forget about it, unless you can drill a hole in it.
True.
Otherwise, you're probably going to kill it. Unless you're really, really careful with the watering. And to be honest, you're not going to have time to sit there and deal with that.
Just easier to have one with a hole.
So if you don't, you can actually use a hand drill. You can buy special drill bits that will bore holes through terracotta or through ceramic. I have a drill press with a special bit, so I can literally just put my pot and then just put down a drill and pop a hole through whatever I need. Not everybody has that.
No, for sure.
Easiest thing, just pick a pot that already has a hole in it. You can get the ceramic coated ones that don't breathe at all. The best ones are just the plain old terracotta. So they've got the drainage hole in the bottom.
Yeah.
And they breathe, so it's going to let out any of the excess water. So you choose your pot. Drainage is the most important thing, but you also don't want a pot that's too big or too small for your pot, for your plant. So when you've got a succulent or a cactus, you're only going to want a couple of centimeters of space on the outside.
Couple of centimeters, okay.
Yeah. Because if you have a little tiny succulent or cactus in a big pot, you're probably going to end up overwatering it. So a small pot, so for something that size is maybe an inch, you can use a 2-inch pot and it'll be perfectly.
Okay.
So there's that, we've gone over that. And then choosing your soil. Soil is another important thing. If you use regular gardening soil, it will retain way too much moisture and you will probably have a dead plant within a month. So I make my own mix. You can buy the pre-made stuff in the stores from Miracle Grow or ProMix, but I prefer to make my own. So the most basic mix you can have is about 50% perlite and 50% soil. And I don't have much for perlite on hand, but that's the white.
That's the little white stones, eh? Like they almost look, do they feel like stones or are they more like a squishy?
It's a really weird texture to explain. They're firm. They're not like rocks. You can literally squish
Okay.
it. It's blow, as far as I know. So you can them and powder them.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. This, if you're handling it in large quantities, wear a mask. If you breathe it into your lungs, it's not good for you at all. So about half perlite and half soil is the most basic mix, and it will be perfectly fine for you. What I use is a bit of soil, about 40%, about 40% perlite. It's usually a mix of perlite and pumice or volcanic rock or any sort of pebbles. What I've been using recently is called calcined clay.
Clay?
Did you say weight or?
Clay?
Oh, clay,
No.
yes.
Okay.
So little clay bits. So what
Oh,
we've got
okay.
is
So it's almost
just
like those little clay pearls that they use in hydroponics, but much smaller.
Leca. It's
Okay.
different. Leca are here.
Okay.
So these are little porous balls of clay,
Yeah.
and these are just little bits. There's like
Yeah.
crumbs. But you can use this as well. Anything just to aerate soil and make sure that the water can drain through it is perfectly fine. So everybody tends to have their own mix, what they prefer.
It's almost
So
an art form.
yeah, but after a while you can just eyeball it and you can just tell by how it feels and how it looks if it's going to be okay or not. So I use a mixture of perlite and pumice or rocks, whatever I tend to have on hand. And I usually add in a little bit of compost worm castings.
Yeah.
You can also use liquid fertilizer that's been really watered down, but I prefer not to if I don't have to. Worm castings are usually good enough and you don't have to worry about it.
Okay.
Once you've got your proper soil, you've got to choose your lighting. So your succulents, for them to be the happiest, you're going to want them to have at least 6 hours of bright indirect light every day. So to do that, you're best suited in like a north facing window where they get a lot of daytime light, or you can just use a grow light. And so if you're using a grow light, just have it a few inches above your plant, and that will keep it nice and not stretched out and very, very happy.
6 hours a day. Just to let you guys know that Melissa has also shared her PowerPoint. What I'm going to do once we're all done is I will send that to you. So if you're like me, you're making notes, but I keep forgetting that I still have that PowerPoint to look at again. So I will send that out to you as well.
Yeah, so everything that I'm talking about is going to be in the PowerPoint somewhere.
Excellent.
Be sent out to everybody. You will have your own copy, and it's a lot of basic information that you should know. The next thing on my list is just watering. When you're watering a succulent, you're supposed to water more, like with more water, but less often. So when you're watering a plant, you're usually waiting until the leaves become a little bit soft and a little bit wrinkled before you bother with watering. So this is one that I've underwatered on purpose, just so you guys can take a look at it. I don't know how well you can see it though.
Yeah, we're a little bit in the dark at the bottom there.
Under light.
Oh, that's much, much better.
Yeah.
Okay. So you're looking at those
leaves.
little wrinkles a little bit?
Yeah, so
Oh,
when it's happy and it's full of water, the leaves do not have wrinkles like that.
okay.
Then you'll notice the leaves are a little bit more squishy and less firm than what they normally are. So that is a sign that you need water.
And that is that something that would happen with a aloe vera as well?
With aloe, usually you'll see the tips, they'll start to flatten out a little bit.
Okay.
When it's full of water, it'll be nice and plump, but when it starts to dry out, the edges will start to flatten a little bit.
Okay.
So you see there's not much water in the edge, and the leaves just won't be as plump. So you can feel as firm as it should be, you give it a good watering. So when you're watering, you don't want to just put a little bit, you are going to soak this thing. So you can either top water it, fill it until the soil is saturated and water is dripping out through the bottom.
Okay.
Or you can do what's called butt chugs and just put it in a tray and just put the water in the bottom and let the water soak up.
What is that called?
Butt chugging.
Oh, wow.
I don't know if that's like the official term, but that's kind of hilarious. So
That's kind of funny.
that's what I do. I tend to do that with the smaller plants because it tends to encourage the roots to start growing down. So when I'm growing a cactus or a succulent from seed, I will bottom water it.
Okay.
And I've noticed that the roots will actually grow down a lot stronger and a lot quicker if I bottom water it.
That makes sense.
Yeah, so you can do that or the top water, but it has to drain out. So before, it's important that you do have that drainage hole, because if you don't, you are going to drown and kill your. So over the summer is when you want to be watering it the most, but even at the most, it might be twice a month.
Oh.
So if you're ever in doubt, just don't water it. It's easier to recover an underwater plant than an overwater plant.
True.
So over the summer, you're watering it more, which is every couple of weeks. And over the winter, they need less, so maybe once a month. But you can honestly just keep an eye on the leaves and they will tell you when they need to be watered. Fertilizing, I've already talked about. So like I said, the worm castings, you can buy them in any greenhouse or compost. If you have a composter at home, you just grab a little bit of compost. And I've showed you the plant food that I use. But I use it watered down. So I'll have like a liter or two of water and I might put like 4 or 5 drops of this stuff in there.
Okay. So when you're using compost or the worm castings, are you digging them in there or are you just laying them on top?
I actually just mix it directly into the soil when I pot them.
Okay.
And for a long time.
Okay.
So it's a common theme with this. If you over fertilize it, you're going to kill your plant. So patience is the most important thing with these guys. So they'll grow really quickly over the summer. They'll be a lot slower during their dormancy period. So over the winter, you're probably going to see some of the bottom leaves, they're going to dry up and they're not going to be super happy. You got some dead leaves. That's fine. It doesn't mean your plant's going to die. It's still healthy. Just for aesthetics, if you want it to look nicer, you can just rip them off. And they'll just pop.
Okay. That one's super cute.
And yeah, so they thrive on neglect. You ignore them, they
and not too much, just a little.
Yeah. Thing. The water needed to keep your succulents alive is going to be this much, but that much is also going to kill it. So it's just important to just water it thoroughly when it needs the watering and then just ignore it in between.
Okay.
Does anybody have any questions?
Anybody have any questions? Lift up your hand. No, everybody's good.
Okay.
Looks like everybody's good.
Okay. So now we've got our pot picked out and we've got soil, which I have not mixed up. So I was just going to do a demo on how to quickly repot a plant.
It's fantastic.
I just a depot bucket of my soil.
Good idea.
So I by eye, but I just want a scoop or 2 of that. My perlite is currently outside in my work shed covered in snow, so I can't get to it. So today I'm just going to use the clay. We want it to be about 50-50.
Where do you get your clay?
I found that in a greenhouse down south. There are some places online that you can find it. Ceres Lavoie, it's a greenhouse based in Quebec. They have a lot of substrates. So they have like the Leica clay bits, they've got charcoal, everything that you need. I have trouble finding it locally. But if you can find a lot of resources of where you can find it. I can always send that to Louise if she wants to add that to notes.
Absolutely.
And if you don't have that soil, do you need to have it, or it's a must-have?
No. So regular soil is fine. Doesn't matter what kind. I tend to lean away from Miracle Grow because I've had some issues with bugs in the past, but Pro Mix is usually a good brand. Regular gardening soil, it is perfectly fine to use. You don't have to use a cactus and succulent mix from the store. So regular soil and perlite, so 50-50. So what you're going to mix.
More of a sandy mixture, right? Because of the little pebbles that break it up.
Yeah. So it's about half and half. And then what I'll do is I'll add a tiny little bit of worm castings in it, which I do have, but it's over there, but I'm just doing a demo. So let's pretend I added some. It looks like soil. You just want to add like a little sprinkle of it and then mix it in.
Okay.
And I usually add a little handful of charcoal.
Okay. What is the charcoal used for?
It just helps keep everything from gnats away, and it just honestly, I can't give you like a 100% answer as to like why exactly I use it. I just find that it just helps the plants grow. And so I usually just add like a tiny little bit of that in there with the worm castings, and then half perlite and half soil, and this is good to go.
So now you got a nice batch.
So that'll be a few. And then you got to pick the succulent or the cactus that you want to repot. So I just got a random
got
cactus.
a flower on it.
It's got a few on the top. It's got a little crown coming
It's so cute.
So cute.
Still in a nursery pot. So I kind of just squeeze the outside a little bit just to loosen up some of that soil. When they come in the nursery pots, they tend to be in like a really dense soil, and it doesn't absorb water very well. It's just not very nice.
Might be why a lot of our first plants like that don't last, right?
Yeah, if you keep
It's
it in
not
that,
all our fault.
it isn't. A lot of the box stores are usually watered way too much. They're in soil that absorbs all that water, and by the time you get it home, the roots are rotted and it's not in very good shape. So what I do is I just gently get rid of as much soil as I can.
Oh,
From the root.
and that's not very picky on your hands?
This one, the spikes kind of go
Okay.
horizontal right out. So this one I can actually handle, and it's not too bad. You might want to wear gardening gloves. I'm just really used to this, and this doesn't bother. This might be too pokey for some people, but I just don't care. But you can wear gardening gloves. I've actually used old tortillas and just covered the whole thing to hold on to, so the spikes aren't going right through my skin. They're going through the tortilla instead. Which is an odd little tip, but it actually works really well. So you don't have to get rid of all of the soil, just get rid of most of it. It's a good opportunity to check the roots and make sure there's no pests or bugs crawling around in there and there's nothing rotten. So like I said, it doesn't have to be perfect. Just get what you can off. Even this is fine.
Okay.
Then you take your pot. You want to fill it mostly to the top. I usually give it almost an inch.
Okay.
And you take your little dude, stick them in there. You just kind of nestle the roots in. You just wiggle it around a little bit just so the roots start settling in a little bit. And you get it where you want it to be. And then you just fill it right up to the top. So it's settled in there like this.
So you didn't push down too much either, so that it gives it some wiggle room to grow within the The vine.
I-
not the
I
roots.
just haven't, I usually press it down just so it's not wiggling around too much.
Yeah.
Like a gentle press. And you can either leave the soil like this, or you can put like a decorative topsoil on it.
I like
I
the
f-
decorative topsoil that you used on the gift.
Yeah, I used, those are actually little gemstones that I have.
Mhm.
But what I use is crushed rock. And you guys will probably laugh at me, but it's actually chicken grit. You can go and buy that at any sort of farm supply store.
Okay.
But get little
Farm
bags of
grit?
chicken grit.
Chicken grit.
It's what they feed it to chickens to help them digest their food, but it works as a soil top. Dirt cheap. So it's crushed gravel. So that's what I use. Just take a little bit. Cover the top. So that helps keep some pests away too, because if they can't lay their eggs in the topsoil, they can't lay eggs.
That's right.
That from happening.
And it's just little pebbles.
Yeah,
Perfect.
just crush up.
Hmm.
You can buy a bag and it's huge, like it's a 30-pound bag and it's about 20 bucks.
Hmm.
That's what I use for that. Then when you're done, you've got,
Oh, it's so cute.
a little plant.
It's perfect. Holly said that you can also make a little band and a folded newspaper to wrap around the cactus to avoid the
Yep.
prickles that way too. That's a good idea too.
That works very well.
Mhm.
Eat a lot of tacos in this house and have a lot of wraps sitting around, so that's just what I use. They get stale, I can just keep them, and
Oh, that's what you meant.
yeah, it's like an actual turkey. Like you
Yeah,
have a couple, get a little bit stale or whatever, you can literally just take that and just
wrap
use that.
it.
and then you can throw it in the composter when you're done and call it a day. So that's it for planting. Does anybody have any questions about that?
Yeah, the chicken grit. Would it be helpful as a topper for all or any other types of houseplants as well?
I use it for every single plant I have.
Oh, really? Eh?
Yeah, and it actually helped me get rid of a lot of the gnats that I had last summer.
Okay.
Some random tip online. I don't know if it was a YouTube video that I watched or just something that I read, but it was something that they suggested and I was able to find some locally. So that's what I've been using ever since. And I went from having gnats, like fungus gnats in almost every plant, down to maybe one or two kicking around, and that's about it.
Oh, that's awesome. Because they're
Just
hard to
keeping
get rid of.
They are, but they don't do much damage to your plants. They're more of an annoyance than anything. So if I had any sort of pest on my plant, I would want it to be gnats.
No. Okay.
That's it for potting. Is there any more questions about that process or fill or watering?
Questions? No? No, looks like everything's good. It's awesome.
Okay, so
Oh, I had a question. Just because you're talking about repotting. So one thing I have a jade plant that I've been propagating, and it's fine. And at what point, like when you have at what point, like would I propagate like a jade plant? Like what point would you transplant? Like, how big would you want like your plant to be to transplant? If that makes sense. Like this guy's a little young, so it might be a little while.
yeah, I try to leave it in the same pot for as long as you can.
Okay. Like
Yeah.
if my plant, if this ends up grow, so this is gonna grow. This is gonna, with patience, it's gonna grow, and
Yep.
a lot of patience. I killed the plant that it was originally on, so I've done that mistake. And I have like 6 of these guys that are starting to slowly propagate over the last few weeks. So
Okay.
basically, if your plant is falling out of its pot, is that a good indicator? Because the jade's gonna grow up and it's
Yes.
gonna get leggy. If it's starting to fall out, is that like a good indicator? Maybe I need to, would that be a good reason it's starting to outgrow its pot, or?
Yeah, they tend to grow more.
They like a tight space, right? Okay.
Yeah, I have one, but it's in my quarantine tent because it's got pests, but I can show you.
I have an attendee that says that she's heard that jade plants like somewhat acidic soil. Maybe we can use broken pine needles as a soil topper.
Yeah,
Never
you can
heard
definitely try. I've never done
pine
it
needles.
myself, but it never hurts to experiment and see what happens.
Never
So
heard of
this is one of my jade plants. So the base of the stem is almost an inch, but I kind of treat a jade more like a common house plant. So I give it a little bit more space so the roots can grow.
that. Okay.
So a plant this size can stay in a pot like this happily, but I wouldn't want to go much bigger.
Okay.
So again, you're looking at no more than an inch from the stems.
Okay.
So it's the same as like a cactus or a succulent. If you're ever in doubt, a smaller pot is better.
Oh.
So if you start seeing roots crawling out the bottom, that's usually a good sign that you want to repot.
That's another good thing to hear. Amy, did you hear her about the roots coming down?
Yeah, so if you see like roots crawling out the bottom, it is a good sign that it needs a bigger pot. But something like this, or like a jade around the side, can live happily in a pot like this for a few years.
Okay. So my son has a, I planted or I potted an aloe vera in one of those terracotta pots, and he feels he needs to water it every other day.
Really?
That seems like a lot, right?
That's a lot. I usually water mine every couple of weeks, but I give it a really heavy watering when I do.
Maybe that's the thing. He's not doing that. I'll have to ask him. Okay.
Yeah, maybe get him to try like once a week and just give it a good dousing.
Yeah. Yeah. Not just a little bit on. Yeah.
Next, if his place is really dry, or if he lives in a hot, then the water's going to evaporate quicker.
Mm-hmm.
So even if you try stretching it out to like a week and then give it a good watering, like I said, and there and see if you can stretch it out a little bit longer.
Okay.
But every couple of days sounds like a lot.
That's what I thought too. I'm thinking he's just not giving it, like you said, that one good watering and then leave it alone.
Yeah. The common problem with people with aloe, they tend to overwater them. And then you end up again with the dead plant. So as long as you just stay with like the simple steps where it's in the proper soil, in a proper pot, watered only watering, and have light, it's going to be happy. And you'll have a happy plant for years and years and years. But sometimes we get pests. So I've talked about gnats already. So part of my solution, as I've said, is just like the chicken grit or the rocks or pebbles on top, just to cover the actual soil. Because gnats need something organic to lay their eggs in. So if they have that, they tend to not burrow underneath and leave the plant alone. But if you do have an infestation or you do see some sitting around your plants, you can get those little sticky traps. Well, so these little guys here, where you just peel off the
twirly ones too that you pull apart.
Yep, those work as well. If anything sticky, you can just stick them right into your plant and those will collect quite a few bugs. I found that to be effective. And a lot of people get rid of gnats and like even fruit flies with the little apple cider vinegar trap. You can fill a little cup and then put saran wrap on top and just pop a few holes in it and the bugs will go right in there. Cider vinegar works really well. One thing I found out is actually rum. Rum works really well flying around. And I guess because it's sweet or whatever, better than cider vinegar, just from my personal experience. And like I said before too, like gnats, they're more of a nuisance. They aren't really going to do a lot of damage to your plants. So it's kind of like the least of your worries when it comes to a pest. But then there's mealybugs.
Ew.
Mealybugs you can burn with fire. I'm not a fan. They're just not fun. So they just come out of nowhere, usually from a nursery pot or a plant that you brought home that hasn't properly quarantined. So even if you bring a plant home and you do not see bugs on it, quarantine it anyways, because they might just be creeping around in the soil.
I never even thought of doing that.
Yeah, because I brought this plant home over the summer and I thought it was absolutely fine. I even quarantined it for a couple of weeks, but it has mealybugs. So I also saved a couple of these just for this video. That little white thing on there, that's the mealy.
Oh, lovely.
Yeah, so they grow everywhere on the plant. Right now there's just that little guy there, but it gets really bad or really fast. And sometimes they're hard to see. So there's actually one
Yeah,
sitting right in the middle there.
yeah, I've seen it. Huh.
Okay. So those, they are a pain. I had a collection of like 200, over 200, almost 300 succulents last summer. I brought home one plant that wasn't properly quarantined and I ended up losing 150 plants because of it.
Ouch.
So when you see them, you want to get rid of them. So all I do is I just directly take a Q-tip and you can either spray right onto the cactus,
Oh,
because alcohol will not harm your plant at all.
oh no.
It evaporates quickly enough, doesn't get into the soil too much, you don't have to worry about it. So I spray the plant down or dip my Q-tip and I'll literally just get in there and just wipe the little dude off.
Little
And
dude,
yeah,
go away.
and he just goes away. But they're really gross. They leave like this sticky webbing and they do a lot of damage to the leaves.
I finally threw out a not a ficus tree, but I feel bad, but I could not get rid of the problem. And I said, enough, it's gone.
Yep.
I feel really bad doing that, but I had to keep it away from all my other plants. It was a big tree. I've had them on, surprisingly didn't go to my other plants. And I would actually wash the oil. I'd use rubbing alcohol to rub it on, but I never could seem to get on top of it. So just recently, after like 4 years of this, it's gone.
Yeah, don't blame you for
So
that amount.
and they do leave a sticky residue. If anyone's ever had that problem, move it away from furniture and your walls too, because it will get on there like drops, and you'll find it like on the head up beside a desk, and it's really it's not pleasant if you have to clean it. So
Yeah, so if you do have them, alcohol is the best solution to that. But if you do notice them, what I always do is I will take the plant out of its pot. I will sanitize the pot because sometimes you'll see them like even just growing along the bottom here.
Okay.
Sometimes you'll lift up a pot and you will just see like a white mass of nastiness underneath there. So I will sterilize and sanitize the pot. I will take out the soil. I will take all of the soil off of the roots, and then I will treat the roots with alcohol too.
Oh, okay.
It evaporates quickly enough. You don't have to worry about it. And then I'll treat the whole plant. If it's really bad, I'll take a toothbrush too and just scrub the whole thing. And then I just respray it probably every couple of days for a week or two until I'm certain that they are not coming back. They're persistent. If you don't see them anymore, keep treating for another week or so just in case, because there might be eggs, there might be a little guy hiding underneath something that you missed. And if you miss one, they will come back and just they'll kill your plants. They like to eat the succulents because they're nice and plump and they're full of water and full of juices. So if they're on your plant for too long, I don't have any that are really damaged, but you'll get like brown spot and your leaves will start coming out. They'll come out smaller.
Okay.
And they do a lot of damage.
Okay.
You see them, you want to get on top of it right away, because you do not want a situation like mine where you end up losing most of your collection because of a bug problem.
No. And when you quarantine it, what are you doing? You're just segregating it?
Yeah, that's it. I have an entire tent of plants that just aren't in my collection because I've seen a bug or they're just new.
Oh, okay. Okay.
An entire like Home Depot greenhouse. So
Okay.
they're actually separate.
The
bug.
name of that bug that you want, that little white one, it was a mealybug?
Mealybug.
Okay, somebody was asking the name of it. And how do you sanitize the pot? Are you just washing it with soap and water, alcohol, or?
Yeah, if you can throw it in the dishwasher works. You can scrub it with just regular soap and water. I usually just wash them outside in the summer if I can with some soapy water.
Okay.
And then off really well, and I'll spray like alcohol in them and then wipe them out and just make sure that they're really, really clean.
Okay.
Terracotta can do all of that. You wash them with soapy water. You can even throw them in the oven for a little bit just to make sure that all the.
Oh, yeah.
There's lots of different ways you can sanitize all that. When you're treating pests, though, for succulents, I do not recommend neem oil.
Oh, no?
No, there's a lot of plants, a lot of succulents, they have like a powdery protective layer on them.
Mhm. Oh,
So
yeah.
you can wipe it off.
Yeah.
So if you're treating a plant with something sticky like neem oil, it actually removes that whole protective layer.
Ah,
Yeah, more susceptible to getting bugs, and they really don't like it. If you get the neem oil too concentrated and it's on the roots, it will suffocate your plant.
ah,
So try to avoid that with succulents as much as possible. I know it's a really common treatment, but not for succulents.
okay.
Sorry. So that's it for that. With other common pests, like thrips and say like spider mites, you're not going to see them too often on a cactus or a succulent. Gnats is usually if your plant's overwatered.
Mhm.
So to make sure that doesn't happen is just make sure the soil dries out completely before you water it again. Don't leave it with moist soil.
That's
Other
one of my big issues too.
Mhm. Is there any questions about pests?
I had a, okay, so when they appear out of nowhere and there's no new plant brought in, like, do you think they usually just come in with like fruit that you get at the store, or?
With gnats, sometimes I believe they can come in with things like fruit. I've had them occasionally come in through the window, or if you have your doors open over the summer, sometimes one or two will get in. Sometimes you just don't think you have them,
Mhm.
and you just don't notice them until you have many, and they might have come in from another plant.
I find I have them more often when I use seed start.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Does that make sense?
And there might be something in that that attracts them. That's about the only thing I can really think.
Maybe. Okay.
I don't have a personal experience or story to share about that, so I'm actually not
No.
too sure. I would assume there's just something in it that is attracting the gnats.
Okay.
With things like spider mites, you're not really going to see them on like succulents or anything, but those do come in through the window in the summer. I've left windows open, and then like a few days later, I notice there's actually like webbing on some of my houseplant.
Mhm.
But they aren't really attracted to cactus and succulent too much. So the biggest problem I've had is with mealybugs.
Mhm.
And the gnats, they will show up if your soil is moldy, or if it's too damp for too long, or it's too humid. But other than that, you don't really have to worry too much about any other bugs. Some common problems that you can have with your plants. They can become exfoliated. So if they aren't getting enough light, they will stretch. So I've got one example. So this guy here
Yeah.
is growing up because it's reaching for light.
Yeah.
Normally the would be nice and compact. It's an Echeveria, but it looks like a little tree. So you can take off all the dead leaves, and if you just don't like how tall it looks, you can literally just snip this off here, like on it, and let the end cover and just stick it in new soil, and it will reroot itself. And then you'll have a nice little plant to start out again. You can
That
literally,
easy.
yep. Just remove all of the dead.
It's kind of
foliage.
cute as a tree too, though.
It is full of them actually that I just let grow all over the place because I just liked how they looked.
Yeah.
But if you don't like it, just some sterile scissors and you can just chop off its head. And what you've got left over is that.
Ah.
They just let the ends dry out and you can stick it in fresh soil and it'll just reroot itself. And then if you still have a stem like this, you leave it, sometimes you'll get little babies growing off of it.
It's a good idea.
Yep. You just stick it back in soil and it'll grow and it's nice and short again. So that's just for aesthetics. Some people like them tall, some people don't. That's just personal preference, whatever you choose to do. And I missed an entire slide, but I'll go back to that. Okay. So the plant's reaching for light is usually the one problem. So you can solve it by literally snipping its head off and beheading it and then replanting it, or you can just move it to a better light source. So it's not constantly stretching out and looking for proper sunlight. And that can just be done by putting it in a north window or somewhere that gets a lot of sunlight or under a grow light.
And you were saying your grow light shouldn't be too tall, eh?
Yeah, so you want to keep it maybe a few inches above it.
Okay.
The closer it is to the plant, the more compact.
Mm-hmm.
But as long as it's getting enough light, it shouldn't really be reaching too much.
Okay.
A little Echeveria friend here that I keep bringing up. It's getting a bit of a stem on it, but it's because light is over a foot away from it right now.
Okay.
For light, but it's still healthy, it's still happy, it still looks great. So it's just personal preference. And there's overwatering. Overwatering is the biggest problem, but I don't have any overwatered plants to show you guys. But you'll notice the leaves might start turning yellow and they'll get squishy and they'll fall off if you just barely nudge them. So these leaves here, they'll be extra plump and they'll be almost like translucent where you can almost see through them and kind of like yellowing. And if you squish them, they're really mushy and almost feeling rotten.
Okay.
When a plant gets to that point, quite often it also has root rot. But again, just keeping it on a regular watering schedule, watering less often, but you're giving it a really good thorough watering should completely avoid that problem. So on the PowerPoint that's going to be sent out, I do have a sample, a little sample photo underneath that actually shows the yellowing leaves. And then underwatering is another problem too, but underwatering is easier to recover from than an overwatered plant. So this little guy that I showed you earlier is underwatered, but give him a couple thorough waterings, the leaves will plump back up and it will be happy again in a week or two at the most.
Okay.
We haven't gone over. I think that was the last thing on my list. So for propagating your plant, you can do seeds. So you can start them right from seed. They're usually really, really, really tiny.
Mm-hmm.
I've used up all my lithops seeds, but I've got some Titanopsis. I don't, like you can't even really see them in the bag, they're so small.
Wow.
So I'll just dump those on some moist soil and then cover it up with saran wrap and just wait for them to germinate. But they're so tiny. And then I've had more luck with the larger cactus varieties because their seeds are actually more reasonable. You can see them.
Mm-hmm.
So you can actually put them up one by one. So these little guys here, I've got some from seeds. So I don't know if you can see them very well or not, but these little guys here.
Oh, the little poofs.
Yeah, these are seedlings of mine, but they're 2 years old now. So
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so growing them from seeds is the slowest, most tedious method of doing it, but it's still fun.
Mm-hmm.
If you're willing to wait. Like I said, like these things are 2 years old now, maybe even 3, but they're grown from seed. So you can grow them by seed. Other methods are by cutting. So you can literally just take a piece of your plant off, just rip it off.
Mhm.
They have little growth points, so you can just carefully, gently take that off, and you let them callus on the ends to dry out for a few days.
Okay.
Just plop them in soil, and they're good. We'll eventually start looking for water, and you'll start seeing roots coming out. So it's hard to see, but this little guy's got a couple little
Oh,
roots
yeah.
starting. So it's ready to just go in a pot.
Hmm.
A simple way to do that, and then this is a better example. So these are some stem cuttings that I took where they actually have roots growing on them.
Mhm.
And I literally just stuck them in a pot, and they'll reroot and reestablish themselves. We have new. And then the other way, which is also kind of fun, it's hard to see, is by leaf. So this is a big mess in here, but this is a container just full of leaves. So I've just gently taken them off of the plant. So you can kind of just wiggle them gently like this until they come off. And you try just to do as least amount of damage as possible, but they will pop off eventually. So they'll start loosening almost like a tooth.
Okay.
And then you just lay the leaf in some soil or on top of some soil. And then you kind of just forget about them. And eventually you'll start getting little rosettes growing at the ends of the leaves. I don't know if you can see that in there or not, but there is a couple.
Right. Yeah.
So ink one of those. I haven't moved these at all since they've been in there. Okay. So you pull them out, you see they've got lots of roots established there.
Mm-hmm.
So this you can just leave happily in the soil until the mother leaf actually dries up.
Okay.
Because this little bit here is taking all of the nutrients and all the moisture from this leaf to grow this. So it doesn't even need water to grow all the roots.
So you didn't even water that when you put that in the pot with
Yeah, you don't even need to
soil?
water. You can just put, oh, so right now it's taking everything from here. But if you notice, like the leaves are starting to get really small and starting to shrivel a lot more, you can put a little bit of water in there.
Mhm.
So a little bit of water doesn't hurt too much, and they'll end up overwatered. So it's ready for propagating. And these guys here, like you can literally just rip off like that. You got a little cut end there. You dry out and then stick it in some soil, and then this will grow another plant for you.
That one's pretty cool.
I really like this one too.
Yeah.
You break off the little ends there. It's very milky,
Yeah.
and the milky stuff can be very irritating to your skin. So you got to be careful with stuff like that too. And that's what I have.
That's awesome. You know, we have a seed library at the library, and I just wanted to, you say that you can grow some from seed, but how can you collect seeds from your succulents? Have you seen any of that?
Not very often. When
No.
I get, usually just online. There's some little Etsy shops and some random websites that you can actually find like some decent seeds. So you just have to be careful and not order them from places like Wish or Amazon. Because a lot of times you just won't get the right seeds.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes you'll see a little seed pod come up. So see on like a string of hearts when they flower,
Mm-hmm.
there'll be the seed pod. But I haven't actually extent of like harvesting that to actually grow them from seed, because it's easier to propagate them by cuttings.
Mm-hmm. I've got a question from someone saying, how important is the callusing off stage?
It's important enough. If it's too wet and you put it into damp soil, you're going to see rot, and you're trying to avoid. So you can either let it dry off on the ends and then put it into the soil, and then you can start watering it. Or another idea is what I usually do is you can just take the cutting and stick it right into dry soil and just let it dry in the
So
soil
dry
for-
soil. Okay.
before you actually water it. Because if you water it too soon, you're going to end up with like rotten ends and the roots are not going to come out of there.
So no water when you're propagating from the cutting
Yeah.
right away.
Not right away. So just let the ends dry off, then just stick them in dry soil for a while, let them settle in for a while, be a week or so, and then you can give it a little bit of water here and there just to encourage the root growth.
Okay. Do we have any questions, anybody? I'm gonna stop spotlighting our friend here. Any more questions, guys? No? That's awesome. Wow, I've learned a lot today myself. I'm not scared to ask questions. And I'm not scared to go find more answers too. Chances are we're gonna have one and there's gonna be something and we're gonna be like, oh, what was it that Melissa was saying? And then you're gonna remember, oh, remember that PowerPoint she shared? So that's perfect. So what I'm gonna do here is Melissa created a beautiful, let me see if I can get it to show, little teacup with a Haworthia is what it's called. And it's got a cute little pin in there too. You can't really see through the plastic, but it's super cute. She's got some nice gemstones in there too. So the library bought that so that we could have a prize. I wish I could win it, but I can't. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna share my screen. And where is it? Bear with me here. I don't do this too often. There we go. All righty. So I entered most of your names here. I'll just stretch it out just a second. I've got Gloria, I've got Holly, I've got Joanne, Kelly, Lisa, Nancy, Oswald, Petra, and Sabrina. Did I miss anybody? I've got Holly. No, I think I've got everybody. Gloria's in there too. Okay, perfect. I don't want to miss anybody as much as I'd like to keep it. So can everybody see this? Melissa, can you see this?
I can see it.
Yeah, okay, perfect. So I will go to sort and shuffle and spin. Who's gonna win it? Lisa!
Oh, wow.
Woohoo!
Thank you.
So the great news is, Lisa, that it will be at the Timmins Library. You won't have to come all the way to the South Porcupine Library. We're working here for the week. I have it here already. I'm already here. We're open until 5. And if you can't come today, you're more than welcome to come during the week. I'll have it at the front desk for you, okay?
In Timmins or South End?
In Timmins. The
Okay,
Timmins.
so I'll have to,
Yeah, so
I can't go till Monday. My husband's got the car tomorrow.
that's okay too. So we'll be here. It'll be here on Monday, and I think we're 10 to 8 on Monday in
Okay.
Timmins. Okay, so I'll have your name on it and everything. It's got a nice little bag to go with. Okay.
Nice. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you, Melissa. Like I said, I've learned a lot today, and it's only by doing that you can continue learning, right? So hopefully we can all continue doing that. I will